Okay, perfect. So welcome to the MCVP functional workshop for marketing, whoever you are, wherever you're from in the world. Welcome to the session. Thank you for joining. Thank you for taking out time for your entity to attend and understand this space, whatever we're going to be talking about today. And what we're going to do today is new normal marketing. So this entire session will be focused completely on what the way forward for MCVP marketing is supposed to be, keeping in mind the new initiatives that we're planning to launch, how the next year will look like for marketing, and at the same time, how to survive in a digital ecosystem because we are really not focusing on grounds right now. It's really not possible to do that. So we're going to talk all about that today, and it's going to be really important that you have a clear plan of action by the end of the session for your entity to start. So, hey, before I start the session, introducing myself, my name is Ashwar Chauhan. You can call me Ash. I am the current AI social media leader. I work on the global campaigns, on all the social media handles of iFed Global, and I handle all the content creation and strategy for all of our programs as well for social media. So, apart from this session, you can always reach out to me on social media or even WhatsApp if you have any questions about your entity, how they function, if you have any questions on how digital branding can be and how digital attraction can be. I'm your person to answer all of your questions. So yes, without delaying anymore, let's start with the session. A very simple check-in question for everyone because I figured it's a really small delegate size and why not let's have a check-in. So the questions are very simple and I want each one of you to answer in the chat box with a number. So first one, what sponge of move are we today and why? So from these numbers, you can just answer any number and answer why is that. And second, I want you to tell me your favorite song or jam which you have been listening lately and share the link to that song on the Global Marketing Telegram group. So can you guys do that in the next 3 minutes? Answer in the chat box and also share the link to your favorite song in the next 3 minutes on the Telegram group. Perfect. So now, what to expect from this space and what can you actually understand after the end of this session? There are two things that we want to focus on. One, how can you create a culture of social selling and build a digital brand in your entity? And second, how to customize the global campaign. You already might have attended the global campaign session delivered by Natasha in the previous marketing call. But if you missed it and you're completely clueless on what the next global campaign looks like, please have a check to the booklet and understand what the new with ISEC version 5 global campaign looks like and how you can customize it according to your entity. There are a lot of very important points for you guys to actually understand, and we're going to go in detail today on that. So a couple of expectations, although it's a functional space, there'll be a lot of content being delivered by my side, and there'll be a lot of space for you guys to ask questions as well. If you're like, hey, I didn't understand this, or this is what I'm facing in my entity, it will be a lot more interactive because it's a small space. And at the same time, the functional part is going to be just understanding and reflecting what is relevant for your entity. So it's going to be a lot more data heavy. So make sure you're very aware of all the things that you want to take back as an information. You're having your diaries ready and you're noting things down for what you think is relevant. And obviously you can go back to the session and you can always check out the output as well of the session to understand if you've forgotten something or did not understand something clearly. And obviously you can reach out to me later as well if you have any further questions. But yes, again, what to expect. Key focuses on the space. We're going to talk about four things. First one being social selling, capacity building for your membership, how to actually execute a new capacity building space for your entity. Third, defining non-negotiables. So what are the non-negotiables for your entity in marketing in the next 4 months and also for the transition for your next MC team, for marketing structure, your successor as well. And the most important one is campaign creation. So how you'll be doing campaign creation from the global campaign and make it relevant for your entity and your market. So yes, this is what you expect from the session. And without any further delays, I have a couple of expectations from you guys as well. Be curious and ask questions, as simple as that. Because there's so much that you might have already known, but there's so much more that you're probably aware of, but you're not able to implement in your entity yet. So have this understanding of how you can ask the right questions and take as much information as possible relevant for your entity. Because at the end, I really believe that you're not just attending the session for yourself, but you're doing it for your entity because the people who are choosing to attend the session are going to get the information that they need to implement and take the things back to their entity. So always have this perspective in your mind while you're actually thinking of the questions you want to ask. So now let's start with the session with the first question that I have. So I have a quick question before we actually go into the things I want to talk about. Do you guys know how many global campaigns ISEC has done in the last 5 years? I want you to like throw me a random number. It could be like two, three, four, five, six. What do you think are the number of global campaigns that we have done in the last 5 years? You can answer in the chat box. Five. Okay. 10. Three. Interesting. Six. Okay. Any other answers? We have one right answer over here, but that answer is subject to what we define and what is the meaning of the campaign. Okay, cool. So I'm going to answer that question. But before that, I'm going to first talk about the last 5 years of digital marketing at ISEC. Because with the growth of social media, even if you look at what ISEC was doing in 2010, we were still using a lot of social media. It was not exactly that's the Instagram, but we had messengers, we had Orkut, we had a lot of other social media platforms like MySpace that ISEC was very active on. And our membership was still very active on social media platforms. In fact, like in generation 2013-14, we had Podio as our only icon platform with like 90,000 ISECers at one place. So social media was still very much there back in that generation as well. But the way we were actually using social media was very different. There was no standardization. There was no clarity of how to actually go about your content strategy. But then in the last 5 years, we have made huge strides in social media strategy. So that means that we start focusing on campaigns, we start introducing DTC marketing, digital marketing, and digital ads, obviously with the advent of digital marketing. And the most important one, we started implementing global campaigns and standardizing our brand voice online. So the idea was that whatever we do as ISEC globally needs to have a single voice and a single idea and the way we deliver it. And that means we started back in 2017-18 with Live the Experience as our very first global campaign. Now, this was the very first campaign, and this had 3 versions. If I can actually show you on the slides as well, this is the first version of Live the Experience over here. That's the first one. Then we have the second version over here, which is 18-19. And then we have the third version, which is 19-20, Live the Experience again. This was the third version. So we have 3 versions of the experience. It had basically a very simple understanding that the messaging is same and you're just changing on design. And what we were doing is we were focusing on sub messaging for all of our products. But at the end, it was very much focused on the experience side of it, and it was GV focused because that was also a global priority back then. Over the last 3 years, we had different iterations of Live the Experience, but then we moved on to the latest global campaign with ISEC. Which is definitely going to stay until I see at least. So the idea of the ISEC campaign was to introduce a more functional campaign. Now, a functional campaign basically means is something that we can actually attach to different programs and different products, irrespective of their value propositions and sub messaging. So we wanted a campaign that can not just promote global volunteer, but can also promote global talent and engage with ISEC programs as well. This was a direction that we took even before the pandemic because we knew that what we want to do next globally in the organization. But as normally we have noticed the trend, it takes at least a year to actually drive down things from the global level to regional level to MCs and to actually see them happen on the LCs level. We actually are seeing that finally this time that globally we're having 100% implementation of the With ISEC campaign. It's been a while. We took some time, but we have finally got there. And now, since we are where we need to be for our brand in terms of With ISEC campaign, I'm going to talk about what are the specialties of the With ISEC campaign and why we chose it. But first, I want to define what the future looks like for our brand. So the first one is the global prioritization to position leadership as our brand. And now I want to actually ask this question to yourself. This is not something that you want to answer in the chat box, but just for yourself to answer. When you think of young people and the kind of skills they want to develop, if I'm a young person, I'm going to college, I'm going to university, and I want to develop a skill, in that list of skills they would want to develop, do you really think leadership will be in that list? And more often than not, you will find the answer is no. Young people are not looking to develop the leadership skills in general. This is not the hottest skill a young person wants to develop. And the reason obviously is in the way we have a conversation in our colleges, universities, in our schools, our conversations are never leadership focused. So a lot of times, the biggest struggle that we have seen and noticed over the last 6 months in the implementation of the Vedastic campaign is how we're positioning leadership as I, because that has kind of decremented the interest of young people. Young people are usually, we have found that are not interested in leadership. And that has meant that when we want to push leadership as a brand, we want to start emphasizing what leadership means for ISEC and what is the relevance of leadership for young people. So we don't want to say, hey, develop your leadership. We rather want to say, hey, this is what we think is leadership, and this is why you should develop. And this is how you can develop it as well through the programs we have to offer. So it's a very complicated process of actually positioning leadership through our content, through content innovation, which again I'm going to talk about. But that means that we need to have a clarity on our messaging and stance, and we need to make campaigns that can actually cover a larger part of portfolio that we have to offer. So we are not just talking about exchanges, we're talking about engage with ISEC, we're talking about all the different programs that ISEC has to offer. And again, the last and the most important point over here is content innovation. How we're innovating the current content we are doing, because this is one of the biggest challenges that most entities are facing. That they're making great designs, they're putting up content consistently, they have a good content calendar, but maybe you're doing digital ads and you're like, hey, my ad is getting a lot of reach, but it's not getting enough clicks, or it's not getting enough clicks, but it's not getting enough sign-ins. So you might have this problem, or you might have a problem that, hey, my content looks great, but it's not getting enough engagement on social media. So a lot of these answers will be answered by content innovation that we'll be talking about. And the other one is omni-channel marketing, of how you can connect all of your digital channels to have the same messaging, have the same call to action, have the same derivative for your customers, so they know well that what are we offering, and we have the same message across all of our channels. So we are not talking about something else on one channel and we are saying something else on another. Again, this might sound like a challenge to you that maybe, hey, I had occasionally learned that LinkedIn is supposed to be for B2B marketing and Instagram is supposed to be for B2C marketing. So how am I going to have the same message everywhere? So again, we're going to talk about that. And then we're going to talk about the culture of social selling in our membership. So how you can actually create a structure for your local committees and how they can actually use social selling on Instagram, on the B2C channels, on the traditional marketing channels, and as well as other channels like WhatsApp, Telegram channels to actually reach out to students in universities through such messenger apps and groups. So yes, before I actually go to the first part of the campaign or the main instances from the global campaign, I want to give you guys 2 minutes um, to give if you have any expectations or specific questions that you want to be covered in this space. So you can think about it and you can put down the questions in the chat box right now in the next 2 minutes. Okay, I'm going to give 10 more seconds if anyone has any questions. Otherwise, I'll move forward. Okay, cool, perfect. So now we're going to focus on the first part of campaign, which is what are we doing differently in the current global campaign. So there's been a lot of changes from the previous version 4 of the Vidayasek campaign to the current one. And the biggest change is the focus on content innovation. Because a lot of times we make really good content, as I mentioned, but it's not actually converting for us. There are 4 very important pillars to actually understand, to actually move forward, which is already mentioned in the Vitayastic campaign booklet. So again, I really encourage you guys to go to the booklet if you have not gone through it yet. But at the same time, also drive it down into your membership, because at the end, the people who are implementing the campaign, who are actually doing the content creation and strategies, also need to truly understand what you need. So these are the 4 points, again, right from the booklet. First, adding value to your audience, how you can actually create content that is not just pushing a particular agenda, or it's like basically advertisements with call to actions, but are rather pulling the audience through creating content that they can interact with and is actually adding value for them. Now we do this by creating an audience persona. So I'm going to talk about what are the audience personas and how you can create them. Second, make it about them. Make it about the audience. ISEC as a brand wants to move into a direction where we are talking more about what young people care about and what young people want to do. We want to focus more on youth voice and to focus on what the future of youth, future of workplace, future of skills looks like for young people. And at that moment, when you're able to actually identify the problems young people in your market are focusing or facing, and you can shift all of your attractive strategy in the direction of how you're making it about those problems, how you're actually solving the problems of young people in your market through your content strategy and the things you're offering, your audience will be more attractive naturally. Challenging them with opinions and challenging them with ideas that ISEC has to offer about leadership and a lot of other things. Like, for example, you might have heard conveniently or as a notion that we don't want to have conversations that are political in nature. And obviously, that means that you're not going to have conversations that have a political influence or political color. But at the same time, ISEC can have conversations that are related to, let's say, human rights or that are related to issues around the world. So now if you think that, hey, posting about this could be controversial, then you want to ask yourself is how you can make content that is talking about issue in general and is not actually focusing on a particular instance of that issue. So, for example, if ISEC wants to take a stance against racism, how can we actually not focus on a particular event happening on racism? Because that will be indirectly understood, but how we can directly talk about racism in general around the world, or we can directly take a stance on a particular issue and we don't directly mention a particular event. And the last one, show them possibilities. At the end, this is what ISEC is all about. And from the previous campaigns, getting ready for the future, plan for later with ISEC, we actually have the same messaging that after the pandemic, how can young people develop themselves in the way ISEC has to offer by showing them possibilities. And you do this by creating content that is from your past customers. So this is the advocate part of the customer funnel and how you can actually show how young people have already been impacted through ISEC and how they have grown personally through the ISEC stories that you can basically share in your membership. So yes, how the pandemic evolves a priority today. This is the first thing that you have to actually put a notice on in this session. Most important slide up till now, how the pandemic evolves the priorities right now. You need to focus on social media attractions for LC. So you need to ask yourself that are my local committees actually using social media attraction the best way possible? Are the membership actually able to promote exchanges, engage with ISEC through social media without any issue? Or are they having redundant strategies that have the same kind of creatives, or the quality is just not good enough, or their content strategy is not strong enough to actually attract anyone? So again, you need to track how you're defining the metrics for success for these digital campaigns that are happening locally at a local level, and how you're actually able to define that this is what I'm supposed to do for my entity. Second one, reaching of universities and targeting online through different channels. So you have to understand that how can you, especially in UR-based entities, reach out to young people from a particular university and market through online channels. So could it be collaboration with some social media pages? Could it be collaboration with student unions? Could it be collaboration with societies? Or you could just like recruit membership from a particular part or group of an organization or a university that can directly help you reach out your messaging and messages through WhatsApp or the group to your channel. The next one is innovation with virtual EVA initiatives. So it's really important that while we're already going to talk about how EVA evolves in the next 4 months, for the next term, for the successes that you're going to have, a lot of your marketing is going to be about EVA initiatives, and they are going to be virtual in nature more often than not. So it's really important that you start focusing how you can do product marketing through EVA. So how can you sell your programs? How can you sell exchanges through engaging young people in EVA initiatives? And through the engagement you're getting in your EVA initiatives, how can you sell more and more programs to them? So that means that, for example, I've done a workshop on a particular topic and I get 100 registrations. So now from those 100 registrations, how can I make sure I'm getting a 10% conversion rate for my GTA? So you can define your own goals, you can create your own EVA initiatives, but innovation in EVA initiatives is what you need to start thinking on already. And the guidelines were already released in the previous sessions on the way forward for EVA. So do check it out if you haven't yet. Retargeting old customers with a GT focus, because something that you have again understood from a survey is GTA is easier to sell when you're trying to retarget old customers. So obviously, a lot of approvals or a lot of sign-ups that might have got in the beginning of the year in 2020 that could not go for an exchange might not be interested in that particular program or that particular opportunity anymore. But you can show them more possibilities and you can create a new framework to actually get back to these old customers and focus on GTA and GTE and how they can actually develop professionally because a lot of entities have it in common that a lot of their older targeted leads for GD folks. And the last two, obviously, membership capacity building. Over the last 1.5 years, there's been a drop in CTM globally, and we haven't been having a lot of trained marketers and entities. In general, the capacity of membership to actually create content, understand how to make content has decreased, and you need to be self-aware about your entity. That is capacity building one of the biggest bottlenecks that your entity is facing in actually marketing because if your marketing entity doesn't understand how to do capacity building and you don't have a strong framework for your LC members to be aware of how to do content creation, they're not going to go far in their marketing strategies, even if they have the best plan of action. And this is something I can also share personally. I'm someone that did not have any clue about Photoshop, did not have any clue about Canva, any other design tools, or any other marketing strategies. It all started for me inside ISEC. I started with Canva. I struggled with it for 4 months. Then I figured Photoshop, I figured Illustrator, After Effects, Premiere Pro, all the softwares, photography, videography, marketing trends in my journey in the last 3 years. So at the end, there's a lot of value to learn because at the end, these are also skills that you can actually take outside aspects and use as well. So make sure that the capacity building activities that you're carrying after membership is designed in a way that they're not just looking at marketing inside ISIC, but they're developing in general as marketers because when you add these values to them, they're more likely going to take interest in these membership capacity building activities. And last, digital brand building, so how you can use omni-channel marketing to actually create this brand. So the non-negotiables, again for you guys, is capacity building for the next 3 months. Focus on where does your membership lack in capacity building. Ask yourself this question again and again. Do root cause analysis. Ask yourself the question why multiple times till you get the answer. Customize the global campaign according to your local audience. Track what your LCs are doing because I know that a lot of entities are struggling with tracking the marketing campaigns and they are also not aware of what kind of metrics and what kind of factors they can use. So obviously you can approach me if you have any questions about tracking and how you can track better and unlearn a lot of content strategy and ideas that you had in the pre-pandemic world. Because we're still in this mode that we're hoping that, hey, we are going to go into a direction where we might have the same kind of situation back, we're going back to normal, but it's not going to happen anytime soon. And it becomes really important that we don't stick to the kind of marketing methods we were following pre-pandemic. So you have to adapt, and for that, it's really important that you unlearn a lot of things that you think were working for you because they're no longer work for you anymore. So if that makes sense, I want to start with social media strategy, and we're going to do a quick activity in this. But before this, I want to also ask if you guys have any questions up to this point. I'm going to wait for 10 seconds. If you have any questions, you can unmute yourself. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, guys. So now let's talk about social media strategy. So this is honestly the elephant in the room. Everyone knows that this is something that you're supposed to be doing, but everyone is kind of iffy that, hey, how am I actually supposed to plan my social media? How am I actually supposed to plan a national campaign? And how am I supposed to drive it down at an LC level as well? So this is like a very simple framework for you guys that you can take back to your LCs as well. You can literally just use the same slide and you can use the same content mentioned over here for your membership capacity building as well. But these three keywords are going to be life changing for you. If you can teach your membership these three keywords, you're going to be able to do marketing much, much, much better. The first one being campaign strategy, the second one being content strategy, and the third one being content creation. So the campaign strategy is basically the overall idea that you have, the overall vision you have for a particular program or product that you're trying to sell. So in our case, a global campaign strategy is activate your leadership with ISEC. So this is our messaging. This is how we're defining the main idea. This is our main idea is leadership is our brand, and we want to activate young people's leadership We have defined the messaging, sub-messaging, teach with ISEC, intern with ISEC, develop leadership with ISEC. We have defined the goals. Again, this is something that you have to do custom to your national realities. Define the timeline of how you want to implement this campaign. So the campaign need not be a flat campaign that works around for like 6 months, because at the end, you need to customize your campaign according to your attraction peak, according to your pre-attraction and consideration channels as well. And you might already be aware of content funnel and how you need to create top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, bottom of the funnel, tofu, mofu, bofu, these kind of things for a content strategy as well. So make sure that you're focusing on how you can bifurcate and subdivide your national campaign according to your global sales, your national sales time. And the last one, the most important one, is your national voice and value proposition. So how are you researching and surveying and understanding that what are the value propositions for ISEC in your entity, and what is your audience like? What is the young people, buyer persona, customer persona of your entity looking for in the context of the pandemic right now? So don't make assumptions based on previous research, which was pre-pandemic, and which was focused more on GV or the older program. Do new research, understand what are the young people looking right now in the context of the pandemic. You don't have to do necessarily exchanges. You could create your own EY initiatives. You could do a lot of engage with ISEC initiatives and engage with young people in general through doing these surveys and understanding what young people are looking for in your country um, during the pandemic and the current virtual setup. And this is your why. This is your social media content campaign strategy, where you decide based on data, based on understanding of your market, and based on the overall vision you have for all of your programs and products, you create a campaign strategy. The more often than not, you will never need to create your own campaign strategy. And the only thing you'll have to do is localize your Global with ISEC campaign. So you'll have to just take the Global with ISEC campaign, and you'll have to ask yourself that, how is this campaign relevant for me in my national context? So you're going to localize the campaign, you're going to convert the messaging, you're going to convert the content, your design according to your local reality. So the campaign strategy, more often than not, is just going to revolve around customizing the global campaign. Now, the second part being the how, which is the content strategy. So how are you actually going to use the content strategy in a way that you're actually achieving your campaign goals? So you have defined your KPIs and MOS in your campaign strategy, and you know that, hey, this is what I want to do, this is what I want to achieve, and this is how I want to do it. So now you want to ask yourself the question that what kind of content will actually get me there? So this is basically the content calendar, the content ideas, the content strategy you're driving down at an LC level, the templates you're giving to your LCs, how you're actually explaining them, how you can increase your outreach through content. And this is also the content innovation part that I was talking about, making content that actually adds value to your audience, because this is the content that will truly engage with. This is the content they will actually share, and this will actually help increase the engagement of your social media channels as well. And from working with the GFT, this is something that I've also learned, that making this content is easier than making advertising content. Like figuring out how can you sell a particular product or a project or an opportunity. It's very easy to just ask yourself, hey, what are young people in my country talking about today? And what kind of conversations can I align with the current social media trend? So let's, for example, a particular thing is trending on social media right now for young people. How can you align that with your national messaging, with the campaign strategy that you're defined? And you can just use the trends to actually reach out to more young people. So this means that you're no longer focusing on the selling exchanges. You're no longer focusing on selling programs, but you're just selling the overall brand of ISEC and what ISEC stands for. And through the conversations you're having with your audience, you're actually giving a better understanding of what ISEC is by the content. So every time you talk about a particular leadership, or you talk about a particular issue, or you take a stance, or you give us an opinion. So, for example, right now with the International Women's Day campaign, while we're having conversations about female leadership and stereotypes in female leadership, we are indirectly branding ourselves as an organization that cares about equality, the values that we have in an organization, and we care about leadership. So again, how can you make sure that you're sticking to the value propositions of your organization in your content strategy? But explain this in a very simple way. Your campaign strategy was the overall messaging and idea that you have, but the content strategy is basically the topics that you're going to pick for your content. So giving a very simple example, mental health. So you might be someone who has no clue about mental health in general. You're not someone who's an expert, but you want to do content on mental health. So what you're going to do is you're going to simply Google mental health, and you're going to find all these blogs and all these websites that talk about mental health. And you're going to say, okay, mental health has so many different types. Mental health at workplace, mental health due to childhood experiences, childhood trauma, mental health at home, mental health, self-care. There are so many different topics that can be related to mental health in general. So now you ask yourself that how can I align this topic of mental health to what ISEC wants to be talking about through my campaign strategy and the objectives I've defined in my campaign strategy. So now you know that, hey, this is the kind of conversation I want to be having as ISEC, and this is how I'm actually going to go ahead with my umbrella idea of mental health. So now you're going to do a mini campaign on mental health, and you're going to talk about things that ISEC should be talking about. So every time you want to validate your idea, is this idea good enough? You have to just ask yourself this question: why is ISEC talking about it? You don't have to think about is this relevant for young people, because there are so many other things that are relevant for young people but are not relevant for ISEC to talk about, right? So this is your content strategy, and the last one is the content creation. So now you know that this is a topic you want to talk about. For example, mental health at work. Now, mental health at workplace can have a million different narratives. You can talk about how to have a good mental health at workplace, what are the problems at mental health at workplace. You get my point, right? There are so many different stories you can tell on the same topic. So your content creation is basically going to be picking out a specific content idea from that topic that you've chosen. So are you going to do a post on it? Are you going to do an IGTV video on it? Are you going to do a short video on it? Are you going to do interactive stories for your audience? All of these things are again going to align with the content strategy you came up with. So again, focus on user-generated content, understand your content performance, make sure that you're actually understanding how consistent you're able to do, and what is the capacity of your membership for this content. The thing to note over here is whatever I spoke about right now is not for your national social media channels alone. This also holds true for all of your local communities and how they are doing attraction to their local channels, to their personal accounts. Because at the end of the day, while you don't have an LC channel, you can make the same content strategy at a national level and just drive it down at an LC level and say, hey, every member of your entity needs to be posting this, like a more of like a campus ambassador program where they're like being ISEC ambassadors and they're just driving down. So this is what works. So if you want to do a campaign on mental health, you can create 7 pieces of content, and the LCs can just post on their personal account. You can just do social selling, and you can just do brand building to their personal accounts as well. So there's a lot that you can do in terms of your social media strategy. But remember the 3 keywords: campaign strategy, content strategy, and content creation, and how you can answer these questions to actually create your own tool to actually plan out your own campaign. So it's very simple. Just make your own sheet, your own templates, and understand how you can actually align these things according to your local realities or your national realities. So now I would to again have a space for questions. So if anyone has any questions, you can ask me in the next 10 seconds. Okay, perfect. So no questions. Defining minimums. This is the most important thing that you'll have to be doing by the end of this session. Understanding what are the minimums for your. So is it capacity building? Is it driving down national campaigns? Is it setting a timeline and auditing how LCs are running marketing campaigns? Do you have a good tracking framework? Are you actually measuring the reach and conversion that the marketing is being done at an LC level? And are you having a good feedback mechanism to understand that, hey, you did this content, this is how it's performed, and this is how the results have been, but this is what you were looking to do. This was our measure of success, and this is what you have achieved. So from your T versus A, you understand that was it good enough, and it wasn't, then do a root cause analysis and understand how it could be better. And do the feedback and understand how you can implement a better version in the next 2 weeks. So have a constant dynamic feedback system. So you're evolving every 2 weeks and you're improving in a very short duration of time. And align national campaigns at an LC level. So how you can create national campaigns. Feel free to create national campaign booklets, materials for LCs to understand how to use national campaigns and drive them down properly. Again, it's a part of capacity building for your marketing members as well. And create a culture of social selling. Define timelines and SOPs for your entity and make sure that they really understand what social selling is and what to do and what not to do, because there are a lot of things that seem logical, but they don't actually work out when you actually try to implement social selling depending on different platforms. So the strategy that will work well on LinkedIn is not going to work well on Facebook. The strategy that will work well on Instagram is not going to work well on Facebook. It's going to be very unique for each channel. So again, research what is the audience looking for on the particular channels and what channel is a priority for your membership. So when we do social selling, we basically focus on three things. Using your membership for digital attraction. So you basically create content for your membership, and your membership just posts it in conversational manner on their personal account. Um, they do this by using social media at an LC level, and the major platform that we focus on is LinkedIn and either of Instagram or Facebook. So we don't recommend to use both Instagram and Facebook together as the focus because it could be chaotic. But it's up to you because you really understand what is the relevance for your entity and how you can actually use social selling as a strategy for yourself. Now, traditionally, we have understood that social selling is more related to LinkedIn and it's more relevant for people related to BD or PD or PR when they're trying to do sales or they're trying to attract leads. But it's no longer true in the context of the pandemic because all the brands have shifted to just digital attraction. And your entities can start creating campus ambassador structures and creatives and ideas of how you can actually use a membership to do social selling on all of the social media platforms. So the idea of social selling is very simple. How you can post content that gets the peers and the friends and connections that your membership has to know more about it. And again, if you post the same content again and again, it's not going to help. So even if your, let's say, a particular member has 500 followers, if you're going to post the same content again and again, those people are going to start ignoring it over a period of time. But on the other end, if you can really understand that that person who has a 500 follower base, what kind of content can that person put on their personal account to actually have a conversation about ISEC to their connections, maybe on LinkedIn, maybe on Instagram, maybe on Facebook? How can that person have a conversation about ISEC to their followers? Only then will the followers actually start responding to that content and actually start taking interest. And while it might seem difficult to do on an individual level, if you start realizing that you're actually using a membership of 50, 100,000 people, you start amplifying the kind of reach that you have. And the first steps, even before we ask you guys to do ads or actually do digital marketing, is to really improve on how you're doing your social selling. Because once social selling is understood and the culture of social selling is created, it will become a routine at the local level that, hey, every, let's say, week or every 2 weeks, we're going to do a social selling campaign. This is the conversation we're going to have as a local committee with our um, local young people, local young crowd through social media. Once the social selling strategies start becoming a culture at a local level, you'll start realizing that your LCs become more independent in the way they want to actually attract audience digitally. And this doesn't just hold true for marketing, this is also relevant, extremely relevant for the sales people. So for OGX people as well, it's very important that you're actually understanding just how you're synergizing your content and you're creating content for both OGX as well as marketing, because at the end, in a lot of entities, you might not have LCVP marketing or you have LCVP marketing with a very different focus. So just understanding in general how the OGX synergy can work as well and how the overall membership can participate in social selling and not just people of a particular function. So again, this is a template or this is a checklist for you, which you might have already seen in previous, I would say, sessions that related to campaign launch, if you remember from the previous semester. But if you don't, you can come back to the output of this session, actually read how the synergy can work out between OGX and marketing in brand building, co-creating leadership stories for your campaigns, and how you can actually manage your membership as well, and who does what. So you can define these things in your synergy cost for digital marketing and social selling between OGX and marketing. So the last part of the space is audience persona. But again, I want to have a space if you guys have any questions. So if you have any questions, you can ask me in the next 10 seconds. Okay, cool, perfect. So now I think it's very clear that um, whatever I was talking about is pretty general. So now we're going to focus on audience persona. And audience persona is a new concept. Over the next coming months, you're going to understand more about audience persona. You're going to get more details and understanding of what audience persona looks like. But this is just an introduction to it. So the idea of our audience persona is very simple. You cross-engineer what kind of audience will actually be interested in the content you're posting. So if I'm on social media, I could be interested in memes, maybe food blogging, travel blogging. I'm interested in aesthetic materials. I'm looking out for a specific kind of content. And every young person that is on social media has different tastes or what they're looking for on social media. So I might be someone who is interested in self-growth content, or maybe content related to my field, or content related to who I am as a professional. Now, depending on who I am as a person, defining, I'm doing a proper analysis of myself, I will be able to say that this is why I consume this type of content on social media. Now, if you can re-engineer this and understand that these are your buyer persona, this is an engineering student, this is a marketing background student, or even for ICX, this is extremely relevant. This is an HR, this is a startup, this is a founder of a company, this is a talent acquisition specialist, this is a marketing manager, this is a BD manager. Depending on these people, you can understand that what kind of content will they be interested in. So what kind of content will this persona be interested in? And when I was talking in the initial slide that we create content that actually adds value to the audience, I meant this, that you understand what content is relevant for your buyer persona and you start creating content for them. So for example, for B2B, for LinkedIn, I'm looking to do a national campaign for ICX client rating. So now I'm going to ask myself that nationally, what are the kind of companies and what kind of people in that company I'm trying to attack? So if I'm trying to attract, let's say, an HR manager, very simple. Let's keep it very simple. HR manager. So what kind of content will an HR manager be looking to consume on LinkedIn? It will most probably be related to the trends in HR, the future of talent acquisition, or how you can become better at what work you're doing. So obviously, as an ICER who doesn't have an HR degree, it's impossible for you to know the answers to these questions. So what you need to do is you need to research what are other social media platforms related to HR content are posting on their platform. So here you're doing content curation. You're curating content from other platforms, from other ideas and other channels, and you're actually bringing it to your content strategy. So now I know that, hey, this is a really cool HR channel, and they make this really cool content for HR. And there's a huge community of HRs on this channel. So the first question is, can I partner with them? Can I do a combined campaign with them? Can I have a campaign that be done together on both the social media platforms? So I'm actually getting an outreach on that channel. But if you think a partnership is out of bounds, we can just understand how can the content that they are doing be customized and be relevant for us. So you can start making content on that content line on your platform and keep it consistent and see the kind of engagement you're getting, see the kind of growth you're getting, because your followers right now might be just young people and you putting up content for HRs is not going to do you any good initially. You're not going to get any engagement. So do not lose heart. Keep more consistent content coming, and how you can actually make sure that you're making the content happen in a way that it's not just consistent, but it's consistently adding value to that particular audience persona. So that way they will know how to actually consume the content, and you will know if those kind of people are actually coming on your page. So maybe the first 2 weeks you will only get like 5 likes on every post, but 2 weeks later you did really good in your content and you actually start attracting more and more HRs because they started thinking that, hey, ISIC is something cool in terms of the kind of content I want to consume on social media. And then you can keep mixing it up with bottom of the funnel content, selling content, how you can sell what ISIC has to offer to these people, and you can actually bring them in the marketing funnel as well. And the same goes for your local committees and how they do social selling, how they can actually create an audience persona depending on the universities, the students they have, and create content that actually caters to that audience. So again, one of the most important parts of your content strategy will be your audience persona planning. So you have to go through an entire process of actually defining your audience personas. It's not very complicated because more often than not, you'll already have your buyer personas ready. So you will just have to understand that what does this buyer persona mean for me from a social media marketing perspective. As simple as that. So this process will help you understand the kind of content that will work better for your channels and for your audience on different channels, because again, audience on each channel is different, but each channel has its own unique audience. So there are unique people who use Twitter. There are a lot of people, young people who use LinkedIn. There are a lot of young people still that use a lot of Facebook or Instagram. So don't think that, hey, the content is not working well on that channel, so the channel is dead. The channel is not dead. Your content strategy needs to evolve according to your national market's audience persona for that channel, and you're definitely going to do well in that channel as well. So again, understand next 3 months how you can develop frameworks and processes for your successors to actually have a much better understanding of how they can use digital marketing to actually do attraction. So now, finally, it's a very quick activity time. So I want you guys to a very quick activity by going on this link. Um, the CC buddy can just quickly also share this link in the chat box so one can open it up. But yes, what you need to do is you need to understand that from the non-negotiables that are defined earlier, I'm going to open that slide again, which is the non-negotiable that is relevant for your entity the most right now. So I want you guys to actually take the next 15 minutes to do two things. The first one is understand how the SMART methodology works. So more often than not, you might have already seen this framework, but I want you to understand how you can use this framework for your own entity. And I want you to apply it yourself on a particular project. So it could be anything from the examples mentioned in the sheet itself. And I want you to open it and I want you to actually check out how it works. So quickly sharing the framework as well. So this is a particular sheet. You can make as many copies and customize it the way you want. But for example, I want to do a planning for, let's say, national campaign. So for the national campaign, you can define two major objectives, but you can obviously keep adding more and more objectives. You can keep adding more rows and columns depending on the objectives that you have. But the first one, let's say, is my message. So I'm going to define a first objective to be messaging. What messaging do I want to have? The next objective could be understanding what kind of opportunities it is. So aligning OGX opportunities with content lines. So this could be another objective. And now you can just ask yourself these questions based on the description given here. And you can also research with your MC, with your LCs, and actually find answers to all of these questions in a very detailed manner. Now, once you have answers to these objectives, and obviously you can add more objectives, you will start realizing that you have a better clarity on what you want to do and what are the things you are lacking in the implementation so far. So having said all of this, I want you guys to take 10 minutes and actually do a quick SMART methodology for any of the particular campaigns, or not campaigns, but a particular objective that you want to achieve. So I'm going to give you guys edit access for this sheet right now. And what I want you to do is quickly make a copy of this sheet in the same tab and put a name against yourself. So whatever your name is, just name that tab against your name, and you can do whatever particular topic you want to do for SMART methodology. And right now, I will answer your questions while you're actually trying to answer those questions in the next 10 minutes. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to decide the non-negotiables for your entity. So you're going to ask yourself that what are the non-negotiables according to this. So from these non-negotiables and understanding that we had that I just mentioned, you will also understand what are my immediate non-negotiables I want to take forward for my entity going back. So yes, that is what we're going to do in the activity time. So can everyone start making a copy of the sheet, and they can quickly take up a different objective that they want to actually work on, and I can support you guys in actually creating a SMART analysis for that particular object. Meanwhile, do you guys have any questions? Okay, cool, perfect, people. So now that we have defined our non-negotiables and you've understood the social media strategies and how you can actually help capacity building for your membership and define non-negotiables and how you can use social selling, we will be ending the session. So again, one last time, if you have any questions right now, you can just ask me and I can answer them, or you can always approach me on Telegram. I'm on the global social media and group. And apart from that, I'm also on the global ESPs group. So call to action for all of you. Please make your ESPs join the global ESP group on Telegram. Let me know if you don't have the link. I will send it to you. But we're going to start capacity building sessions globally for all the ESP responsible. So all the ESPs will be getting TTM kind of training from the global end. So they will be understanding how to run the global campaigns and how to do content creation as well. So yes, make sure they're on the group and they're updated with all the sessions that will be coming up in the next 2 to 3 weeks for them. There's going to be a customized session for each one of them, depending on what function they are, if they're digital marketing or if they are B2C or if they are content creation. So that was all from my side. Thank you so much for the people that joined this session. So please fill feedback. The link is already in your chat box. And thank you so much for actually staying here and again approach me for any questions. And with that, we can actually end the session. So before we end this, I want to have a quick
Sorry.
photograph. So let me stop recording.